welcome this good
Praise the Son, our Savior, who granted us our freedom, allegiance to the hero who bore the land with their love. Glory to glory, we rise and down to fall. Here in our nation, flowing with milk and honey. Glory, glory, glory to the Father, making you a nation of joy forevermore. Amazonia, land of freedom, you shall live in plenty, meaning how I need.
Almighty Father, Papa, now you love me so, and you know my name. I give you glory, Abba Father, you know me, you know my name. Abba Father, you know me, you know my name. Abba Father, you know me, you know my name. You know my name, oh Daddy, hey. You know me, you know my name. I can see your hand in my life. Lord, I see your love upon me. Every time I look around, now you are the see. Every time I turn around, now you are the view. I dey hear your voice in my heart. Lord, I feel your love over me. Every time I look around, now you are the see. Every time I turn around, now you are the pillow. Abba Father, you know my name. Papa, you know me. Yelele, 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 yelele. Yelele, 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 yelele. Yeah, yeah. Jesus, your love, now oh. My master, your kindness, now wonder oh. Every time I look around, now you are the sea. Every time I turn around, now you are the view. Jesus, you said I be a picking, no. Jesus, you said your love go cover me. Every time I look around, now you are the sea. Every time I look around, now you are the pillow. Abba Father, you know me, you know my name. Abba Father, yeah. You know me, you know my name. Papa, you know my name, oh. Hey. You know me, you know my name.
Thank you once again, beloved brother, for that piece over there. We have okay. I will be with you soon. Today, in our Amber history of the 8th of March 2022, as usual, and sometimes very rare, we happen to have our appointment with the barrister in the house, and I will be reverting to him very, very soon so that we can handle a topic that we started last week. And unfortunately, or rather, fortunately, I don't know how I'm going to put it. Yeah, fortunately, we decided that we'll be coming back today to make sure that we get into that subject matter. But before we get into that, I just want to remind you of remember. Let us remember. So after this musical pause, I will be coming in with the barrister. Let's listen. Thank you very much. And I wish you should remember the goodness that God has shown to us in Ambazonia. We have our barrister in the house, and the microphone is yours, barrister, to greet the people of Ambazonia. And then remember last week, we reserved something to talk today, which is the lava that was gathering and the boiling point that was gathering in the 90s, and it finally exploded in 2016. Barrister, I've heard some people very much criticize about coming here and talking about history. And of course, that's how human beings are. So we don't know what they will actually want us to talk. If we can't sound and tell the people of Ambazonia exactly where we are coming from, anyway, people have to talk. But as our president said, we need to be focused. And so we'll continue to inform and spur up our people to make sure that they know why we are at this juncture where we are. So the microphone is yours. Greet the people. I will get right into the program. Thanks again for coming.
Thank you very much for having me. Once more, we're here to clarify a number of things. If there is no Ambazonian or any human being at all who thinks that coming to talk history is a mistake, that person is making a mistake. Because without history, you don't know where you're coming from. It is history that will guide you, know where you're coming from, in order to know where you are going to land. Especially in our own context. This is 2023. Most of the young people fighting and dying were born in the 60s, born in the 90s, and 2000s. So they about the history. So they need to know where we are coming from in order to spur them to make a better future where we are heading to. So those who think that history is waste of time now, history is absolutely important. And history is what it is. It is not what you like. And so it is important for us to do it. We'll do it as best as we can. You can come out with a different version, but justify a version by some truth of your source is what is important. Thank you very much.
Once again, thank you so much, Barrister, for those consoling words for the people of Ambazonia to know that whatever is done, somebody is there to criticize. And maybe in the course of the criticism, the individual may not bring out a bunch of things that we should be talking on the ABC Amber television. Remember, I told you that on our Amber history, We will endeavor to tell you as much as it lies within us the truth of what is going on. And there are no specific people that we want them to come and share this on this particular subject matter. If you are an Ambazonia and you have something to tell us to spur us up to engage very seriously, like what we'll be discussing today, please come on board. There are some young people, 30 years downward, who don't even understand what is going on. That means they were born in the late 1990s, and they grew up in the mess. And so they need to know that Cameroon and Ambazonia are not the same country. But if you think that what we are doing is not okay, please, we would like to crave your indulgence to come in here with some important subject matters, or get some people who are not Ambazonians out there to come and share what you think they can share on ABC. I will be ready to host them under this umbrella. So please, when you are talking, don't discourage the people who are trying to do their best. And nobody knows everything in all round subject. All right, that said, we are going to cross over. And last week, we came to a stop at a point when you mentioned something about the AAC 1, AAC 2. I don't know whether there was 3. And I said, from what you said, I deduced from it that our history was in a boiling point, producing lava. Can you go ahead and tell us how these activities of AAC 1, 2 actually went? And then we'll continue from there. Over to you.
Thank you once more. You see, from your introduction, how people doubt history. Before I get to the AAC 1 and 2, let me go back to that part of the story and try to say this. Most of us, at least those who can read and write, who are familiar with Ambazonian history, know at least 2 names, 2 popular names. There's a guy we call Abel Mukong. He died. And there's a guy we call Goji Dinka, who is still alive. Let me take off from those 2 names so we'll understand where we're coming from. Again, Abel Mukong, in his book titled The Prisoner Without a Crime, he wrote in page 4, "This truth has been suppressed, but I know the majority of Anglophone Cameroonians will today acclaim Foncha for this stand and condemn us. Yes, but this is the truth. And it was principally because of this stand of Foncha that I became heavily involved in Cameroon politics." What was the truth Abel Mukong was talking? Abel Mukong was referring to 1959. In 1959, when the issues of independence by joining came, Foncha had just won elections. And they wanted somebody to come to the United Nations and put the position of Anglophones, of British Southern Cameroonians. And he had to go there. The Mukongs were already educated, he had left Sase and many others. Their stand was, I'll come back to Mukong, their stand was, let us unite with Cameroon, East Cameroon, unconditionally. So when you go to the United Nations, put this position as ours. And Foncha went to New York on those instructions of his own countrymen, Abel Mukong among them, and Dinka. But in New York, before the United Nations, Foncha changed his mind on what they said. That's why Abel Mukong is referring in his book, page 4, that this truth must be told. What did Funchal do? Funchal got down and said, look, this independent by joining is not correct. Let us postpone this thing. Let us have our independence first. Then the joining can be discussed later. That was so different from what Abemukong, Dinka, and the rest had instructed him to say. That's why Abemukong says in his book, many people will acclaim Funchal for the position he took and condemn us for wanting to go into union with this Cameroon without preconditions. That's why I say in page 4. And as a result of Funchal's stand, what happened? This history is documented in Abemukong's book, Prisoner Without a Conscience. They thought that Funchal was wrong. And they secured 3 air tickets to fly to New York to convince Funchal not to stand for what he was saying. Gojidinka was in London. He flew from London to New York. Abemukong was in Nigeria. He had just enrolled at the University of Ibadan. He flew from there to New York. Victor Onomangu, may say rest in peace, flew there. The 3 of them, these are 3 people. 4 people went there, but these are 3 who are most important. They went there to convince Funchal, look, let us just go in for this union without preconditions. And Funchal refused. Abemukong, Dinka, and Victor Onomangu. So that's why I said, look, today, as this guy was writing this book, we say, well, Funchal was right. These were educated people. Dinka was already studying law in England. Professor Onomangu was already in medical school. So they were not people that you think that they didn't know what they were doing. And Abemukong was already enrolled in Ibadan University. Funchal was a grade 2 teacher. But he took a position which today he is vindicated. And so that is the history that we should know. And as I said, history is what it is. It is not what you want. That's why Abemukong says today they will vindicate Funchal. Fast forward again with these very people. What happened? Abemukong was, after the play, despite all that, the UN did not listen to Funchal. They went on what they wanted to do. And that led us fast forward to February 11th, the plebiscite. And what is important here is after the plebiscite, the Fumban Conference. In the Fumban Conference, Abemukong was there. He led the OK delegation. The OK was a satellite of the UPC, which wanted independence before independence, joining before even independence, joining without preconditions. I was there, whatever thing they were talking in Fumban, let us join our brothers. That was Abemukong. But it's important to know that Abemukong was doing this. It is most important to know that Abemukong was the first victim of the joining, the first Anglophone, the first Southern Cameroonian victim of the joining, even with the conditions that were put there. After joining in 1961, purportedly joining in 1961, October 1st, Ahidjo went fast forward 1966 to abolish all political parties. They were not abolishing political parties in East Cameroon. There were no political parties there. There was OUC. So in West Cameroon, what KNDP, what KNC, and all those political parties. So they were meant to be brought together by force, and they were brought together by force by creating the CNU in 1966. Others jumped on board. Dinka jumped on board the CNU and became the Secretary General of the FACO section of the CNU. Victor Onomangu, who had gone to New York, joined it and became a government minister. Abemukong refused to join. And that's how he became the victim. 4 years after that, in 1970, they arrested him. That's the basis of this book, Prisoner Without a Conscience. They took him to jail.
What was that a
What was
crime?
his crime? Yeah, what was his crime? The other guy was there, he refused to join the CNU and to pay allegiance to Paul Biya, to Ahijo. And for that, his crime, he remained there from 1970 to 1977.
Wow.
That was Abel Mukong, who had wanted us to join this thing without any preconditions. He was the very first victim. What was his crime? Refusing to join the CNU that they had formed in 19, that they had converted KNDP, UPC, all those parties into in 1966, just 4 years after our so-called independence. And so history is what it is. So it is important for us to know this. That, for example, we have been talking about Fumban. It is not because we lacked educated people in Fumban. No. The Abemukons were there. He had left SASTE with a Cambridge certificate. The founders were there, but it was a manipulation anyway. So fast forward, this is what happened. And so it is important for us to know that history. After that, Abemukong, the second victim of the joining, was Goji Dinka, a renowned lawyer who fled from that thing and is today still living in England. So these were intellectuals being harassed purely for having an opinion that the French did not want. But if you ask Abemukong states in his book, why did they want the joining without precondition? They believed that the French were very bad. They thought that if we joined East Cameroon before independence, the Anglophones were going to be able to transform East Cameroon, French Cameroon, into some type of English Cameroon, which was a lie. It was a wrong belief. It was, and it is still impossible for 20% of the population to transform 4/5 of the population to what they want. So they were misconceived. And so that is where it was. That's how they moved. That's Abed Mukong and Goji Dinka. In spite of all that, Abed Mukong filed a complaint at the United Nations Human Rights Commission and won the case. His case was a 19 communication 1344 of 2002. And so the same thing happened to Dinka. And so despite the winning, it did not alter anything. But fast forward to the topic of today. We talked about the AAC. Why the AAC and where it took us to. If all of us remember history very well, in the 1990s, there was this generalized uprising across mostly Africa. Sovereign National Conference, the SAN. It took place in different countries in Africa. When it came to Cameroon, Paul Biya made a statement. Sovereign National Conference without object has no object, according to him. But in the place of Sovereign National Conference, he called the tripartite of 1991. He called the tripartite. What did the tripartite mean? The tripartite meant the government, the civil society, and political parties. Those were the three parties that were invited into the tripartite. What was the tripartite to do, according to Paul Biya's government at the time? The tripartite had two items on the agenda conceived from the presidency. One, access to the media, because they were contemplating election 1992. Now that many parties are coming, they wanted to see how they could share the media space for campaign. That was item number one. Item number two, a reform of the electoral code to accommodate other parties. Remember, the SDF had been formed, and many other parties were coming up, Damjo and the rest. So they needed some reformation of the electoral code. And so political parties that were represented, that were already legalized, had to come in to discuss these two items. And so each party came in with a delegation of its own. Among the parties that, of course, were present was the SDF. Among the parties that were present was the NDP of Njoli Tumbe. Because Njoli Tumbe formed a party in Boya there. And so they were all invited. There was also the civil society. And when they came to Yaoundé, Ambassador Fosun also had a party. They all got to Yaoundé in the tripartite. And for the first time, they were able to put pressure on the government of Yaoundé to change its plan. They said, look, we cannot just discuss access to the media. We cannot just discuss the electoral code. No. In the new dispensation of political parties, we need to revisit the constitution. They forced that on the Yaoundé regime and accepted that we must reform the constitution. And these different groups were to nominate candidates for the reform of the constitution. And they did. The CPDM nominated its own candidates, that's a political party. The SDF nominated theirs, and others nominated. I think there were a constitutional committee of about 13 or 14 members. Among the 13 or 14 members of the proposed drafting constitution of the new constitution, 4 Anglophones, 4 English-speaking found themselves there in different capacities from different angles. Simon Munzu coincidentally found himself there, but for who? He was representing the CPDM. Because he had a big office at Chinga in the CPDM headquarters. Professor Onyangwe found himself there. He was nominated by the SDF. So they came in from different angles. Elat found himself there. He had been proposed by Jody Tumbe to represent the civil society. And of course, Benjamin Etoy found himself there. He was the Minister of Communication, the Minister of Information or Culture, whatever they call it at the time. So these are the 4 English people who found themselves in that commission, coming from different things, from different angles. Coincidentally, the 4 people were all lawyers. Anyangwe was a law professor in the University of Yaoundé. Munzi was a law professor. Elad was an established lawyer in Boya. And Benjamin Etoy was a lawyer. Those who remember Benjamin Etoy, before becoming minister in Yaoundé, he had been Procureur General in Bamenda. That's why he moved from there to Yaoundé. So these 4 people found themselves there for the purpose of drawing the constitution. And there was something common in them. They agreed that we're all Anglophones, they called themselves at the time. And being Anglophone, the Anglophone problem must be addressed in this new constitution. And so unusually they were able to unite on that aspect. And then they asked themselves, yes, we have this common idea. But they will ask us, who mandated us to do this? We didn't come here to represent Anglophones. But how do we get the mandate to come in to talk on about Anglophone problems? So they decided that let us call an AAC, an All Anglophone Conference, to receive the mandate of the people. And so they issued an invitation to the AAC, to the population for the AAC. That invitation was signed by the 4 of them: Simon Munzu, Anyangwe, Kasan Anyangwe, Elad Sam, and Benchoy. They signed this joint invitation. AAC1. It became AAC1 because they were AAC2. The goal was to come out with a common position to propose to the Constitutional Drafting Committee as far as Anglophones were concerned. And so that's the beginning of AAC. And when they came together, I was there. It's not something that I heard. I was there. Everybody that we have cried about was there. Foncha, everyone was still alive. Foncha was there. Muna was there. And all these other people that you and me know. The other man who had gone to Yaoundé in 1961, whom I don't remember seeing him there, and he was still alive, was E.T. Igwe. He too was a lawyer, but he was not in AAC1. But that's not important. The important thing is what AAC1 came out with. As I said, it was a time bomb. It was the beginning. AAC1 came out with 2 documents. they came out with the resolutions that they wanted the Constitutional Drafting Committee to do as far as Anglophones were concerned. And then they came out with document 2, which they called the Boyer Declaration. What is the most important thing of the resolution, which is still applied today that you and me are talking? They resolved in 1990, this was not 1st and 2nd of April 1993. One of the resolutions, which is the most important one, was anybody coming to represent Anglophones in the new drafting constitution must be mandated by the people. Whoever go there without the mandate of our people, that's Anglophones, any decision they take there is not and void. It's written there in black and white. You don't need to go if you have the opportunity. All these are documented in Dr. Atang's book, titled The Quest for Self-Determination. They're all inside there. I don't have to waste my time reading it. I have the book there. So they did that. And then they came out with the second document, which they called the Boyer Declaration. But they didn't just end about the constitution. They said, okay, we shall propose a federal constitution, because at the time, in 1993, everybody was a federalist. They wanted a return to the federation. And so they came out and proposed a constitutional drafting committee for the Anglophones, a proposal for them to propose a new constitution, federal constitution, and sent to the constitutional committee. That National Constitutional Drafting Committee was headed by Professor Owona, who was a constitutional law. And so AAC1 set up this committee that wrote a draft of the unproposed constitution. They went further and translated it into French. They went further to publish it in newspapers. Finally, they went further to have this document translated in French and English, deposited at the presidency by a bailiff with the receipt that the thing has been received. From April 2nd, 3rd, that was the end of AAC1. They resolved that we will reconvene in Bamenda for AAC2 after getting the reaction from Yaoundé of all what we have said here, of these documents transmitted to them. And everybody went away. They had set up a standing committee to working on this thing. The standing committee included the conveners. Unfortunately, Benjamin Eto'o, who had been a convener, was not very participating. But the three of them, Simon Munzu, Carson Anyangwe, and Samuel Kontan Elat, remained there. They led these things. And so they took an appointment for next year, that is 1994, May, June, to reconvene, to reassess what had gone on. And so a year passed. Yaoundé had received all those things. But before even Yaoundé received that, before the AAC1 held in Boya, Yaoundé had sensed that it was going to be dangerous. So Yaoundé sought to ban it. The initial venue for the AAC1 was supposed to be at the University of Boya, the Amphi 200, whatever thing they call it, the largest hall there. The morning of the conference, that is April 2nd, the Dr. Njoma received instructions from Yaoundé. She was the rector of the University of Boya. So now that thing cannot hold in the University of Boya. They stopped us from holding in the University of Boya. So that morning of April 2nd, 1993, they had to look for a venue. There was no place that could accommodate everybody. They went up left and right. They could not find a place. The only hall that was available then was the Kali Mission Mount Mary Hall. He used to run a small center there. And they went to the late Bishop Pius Awa and said, will you permit us use this thing? And the man said, well, what no problem, go and hold your meeting there. And they went. The town was full of policemen, armed policemen, to make sure that people did not hold the conference. And then, after they authorized it, we were afraid. I was a participant. I had my friend in Boya, who was the chief of judicial police. He was my classmate in the university, so he was very close to me. So that morning, he knew my participation. I was, in addition to participating there, I was a member of SWELA. SWELA was the most powerful group over there in southern Cameroon, in southwest province. So if my friend called me and said, brother, I said, yes. Say, you attend the whole meeting? Yes. I said, yes. I said, you see, he said, you see all these policemen out there armed there? I said, yes. If my friend is a Bakosi guy. He said, don't worry about them. They will not catch any of you. Just go and hold your meeting. Don't mind them sitting there with their guns. Just go and hold the meeting. They're just meant to frighten you. So when I heard AAC1 in Mount Mary and came out with these resolutions, these resolutions were so displeasing to Yaoundé that they made up their mind that they will never hold it again. So May next year came that we were supposed to hold AAC2 in Bamenda. We went there. I was there too. And government had banned the whole nonsense. The governor had banned it. It was not going to hold. Again, we found solace in the Presbyterian mission. They went to the Presbyterian Synod office. And they permitted us to hold a meeting in the church center. That's why I find AAC1 holding in the Catholic Mission Hall, AAC2 holding in the Presbyterian Church Center. That was some of my earlier presentations. I said, look, let us be careful with the church. These are not people, they are our allies. And so we had AAC2. And what was the outcome of AAC2? They repeated what had been said in AAC1 Boya and insisted that whoever wants to represent Anglophones, they call it, in the Constitutional Drafting Committee must be mandated by the Standing Committee that they are set up in Boya a year ago. But they went further and issued no longer a proclamation, but no longer a declaration, but now a proclamation. And that proclamation, they said this, that taking note of what we had done last year, all the information we sent to government, all the action we took, translated this document into French. If this government of Yaoundé does not act on our demands within a reasonable time, this was now 1994, within a reasonable time, we authorize the Standing Committee to constitute itself into a constituent assembly and reinstall the independence of Southern Cameroon in the best way they could.
1994.
That they did not need to hold AAC3 anymore because they realized that an attempt to hold AAC3 was going to be stopped by Yaoundé by force. So the last one they had in Bamenda, which is called AACT2, made that declaration, we don't need AAC3 anymore. These people who have set up here expand themselves, add more members to themselves, reconstitute themselves into a constituent assembly, and take all the necessary measures to restore the independence of British Southern Cameroon. That was in black and white. You can read the Bamenda Proclamation, read the Boya Declaration. They are online if you don't have these books.
Wow.
And so that is what happened. That's AAC. Let me now come back to Abelmukong and Dinka. Abelmukong was picked up in 1970. I never came back until 1977. Remember that after 1970, there was this change of the constitution in 1975, dismissing from Muna, putting A or B or C. There was this, nothing's changed. There was the 1972 referendum when Abelmukong was in jail. So there's nothing you could do. So the institutions that they wanted me to preserve were abolished between 1970 that Abelmukong was in jail and 1977 that he came out. But there were people still alive there. Dinka was still alive. He was still active. He had been a member of the CPD, so, of the CNU, so he was not in jail. So now comes Dinka. What they voted for in 1960, just 10 years earlier, had been scrapped up. The so-called federation in court had been abolished by 1972 referendum. And that was not even all. things have changed. So the whole idea of joining this Cameroon started changing. People started looking at it differently. Among the people who stood saying no, this was wrong legally was Goji Dinka. His lawyer said, no, this is not what we're in for. So he started agitating. He started agitating. And then came again 1984, just 5, 6 years after that, when the whole thing of changing even the United Republic to the Republic of Cameroon came in. And Dinka said, no, this is not what we're in for. And that's why Dinka rebelled. And they started looking for him to send him to jail. He was only left and right to escape. And so that is the beginning of the trouble. Now, you find Abemokong again, after the wholesale abolition of what they had hoped for in 1961, call it a federation, or whatever thing they call it. Abemokong was now back. Abemokong had come out of jail in 1977 when these things were unfolding. Abemokong was sitting out there in 1984 when Paul Biya did all this by decree. When Paul Biya did this in 1984, there was an attempted coup. And Abemokong, and that changed the whole character of Paul Biya's regime. And in order to do what he called it himself, a new social order, whatever nonsense he called it. So he sent out a certain guy to go and sample opinion to the people, what they wanted people to do. He was Mr. Zambo. But before that, Mr. Abemokong published a second document. He published, remember, but this is what is important. He published a second document after the 1984 change of the name. It is titled, What is to be Done by Abemokong. The Federation is gone. What they contemplated in 1961 is gone. What shall we do now? Asked Abemokong. And he wrote that document, wrote proposals of what he thought should be done to make the country better, and sent it to the Zambo Commission. They're all documented in this book. Those who don't have it can look for it. It's all written there. I'm trying to lay the foundation to the AAC1. Remember, the AAC2 had given Yaoundé a reasonable time. This was 1984. This was 1994. In spite of all this, in 1996, the commission from Yaoundé, the so-called Constitutional Drafting Committee, came out with their new constitution, which applies today. They published a new constitution, I think January 1996, which never took into account any proposal from Anglophones. Nothing. The document that deposited there, that AAC deposited there, the draft, it had nothing.
Wow.
They didn't even look at it. They looked at it, but they just threw it away. The only thing they did, which we now know, which I wouldn't even know then, was Kamto and his people there. Also, Kamto was there. Kamto is a lawyer. They looked at this and said, this is a time bomb. These Anglophones are coming up. What shall we do to handle them? They wrote somewhere in the present constitution, hidden, somewhere, special people can be given special status, and kept it there. They knew that when the Anglophone rebellion starts, they will raise the issue of a special status. And so given a reasonable time in 1994 to 2016, 36 years after, the Anglophone problem exploded. And they did not know what to do. Until Kamto reminded them, there's a place in the constitution that they should be given special status. That's where the source of the special status comes in. And then people are questioning, why do we do this? We didn't do it in 2016. It just exploded due to the negligence of Yaoundé, or not negligence, the attempt of Yaoundé to suppress it. It didn't come out by accident. When the teachers started, when the lawyers started in 2016, it was like a magic would ignite a bomb, or it ignited the bomb. That's why we are where we are. Foundation laid on AAC 1 and 2 exploded in 2016, and we are moving forward with it. And to move forward with it, I'll end with another one of us. A certain Victor Epien Gourmet. He published a book, very interestingly. Published a book here. This is a book here. Titled
The journalist.
What God Has Put Asunder.
Victor Piengome was a journalist, right?
He was journalist, he lives in Limbe. That's what I'm
He's
saying.
still
I'm
a
anywhere it. He lives in Victoria.
Oh, okay.
He's retired. He published this book,
Mhm.
What God Has Put Asunder. It depicts a marriage, a failed marriage, a first marriage that never worked. He was talking about British Southern Cameroon and East Cameroon. He said, "Good, God has put this thing asunder. He cannot put it together." This is a book here. You can get a copy of the book if you want. And so this is where we are. As I said earlier, the problem did not arise because we lacked educated people. Let me summarize again. In the 1961 issue that came up, what were educated people? What the Abelmukans? What the Dinkas? What the Anomangos? What the Fonglongs? So it's not because the Foncha and Reyes were the two teachers. No, what them there? In 1993, when we conducted the AAC, it's not because we lacked the people. All of them were lawyers of renowned standing. When AAC started, they put out the documents, but it did not work. 2016, when it exploded, it was not because we lacked people. The people who championed it were lawyers. The people who championed it were professors. They were educated, better educated than even francophones. It did not work because what God has put asunder
Let
cannot
no
be
man
put
put
together.
together. Wow.
If today, if we are suffering today, 2023, it is not because we lack educated leaders. Almost all our leaders in the interim government and other groups are professors. They are PhD holders. Why are we still suffering? It is because Abel Mukong says in page 3 of his book, the truth cannot be hidden. The truth cannot be suppressed. We survive on the truth. We are surviving on the truth. And so, what God has put asunder cannot be put together. We are moving on. You and me are lucky to still be alive. Tomorrow we are gone through natural causes by death. People would stand up for this cause. Abemokong is dead. Anomangu is dead. All those people who were in
Itume,
1960,
all
almost
of
all
them.
of them are dead. But the cause did not die. The cause survived. So again, AAC 1. Remember, within a reasonable time, if we don't act, we will revive our independence. Remember, Abemokong, the truth cannot be hidden. It cannot be suppressed anymore. These are all documented in books. These books contain a lot. We don't have time to review all the books.
Wow.
But I can assure you that I have thousands, I have hundreds, 50 scores of those books here. I don't go out and make statements without verification. And as I've always said, whoever doubts my version of the story,
To the
share your
contrary.
source, and I will drop my heart to you. Thank you.
Wow. Barrister, the story is very sweet, but time is short. I want to let the Ambazonian people know that 2016 was just an eruption. The lava had been gathering. And like Barrister has outlined, you see that we had been at war from 1961, but it was silent war. And most probably, the war was not so pronounced because individuals were actually standing at the forefront fighting. Today, we have concerted our power and our strength to come together, but the enemy has still picked out a few people who are talking the language that La Republique spoke and overshadowed us. But this time around, we are not retreating. We will get to Boya. Somebody had said, hey, why don't we leave the thing? Yet they are the very people who are dying on the streets in Libya, trying to cross over to America. They forget to know that America fought the same way we are fighting. Barrister, can you say something about that, and then we'll come to a run-up because our time is gone. Did America fight? And if America came to a point where they said, let's surrender, let's go, would people from Ambazonia and other parts of Africa be rushing to America today?
No revolution has been easy at all. I can say us Ambazonian revolution is better structured even than the Americans when they started their own. I
Okay.
invite all of us. You see, the idea of going away to set our own institutions did not begin in 2016. It did
Okay.
not begin with President Sako. This idea had been contemplated well in 1995. And not just contemplated, but documented. If you have the opportunity, read a document called the Boya Peace Initiative. What does the Boya Peace Initiative produce in 1995 talk about? It talks about peaceful separation. It doesn't just talk about it. How shall we separate peacefully? That was back in 1995, after AAC2.
Wow.
It laid out how we were going to go. For example, it contemplated and said, look, as of 1995, and even today, we have our boys and girls in the Cameroon Public Service. Where are they going to go? Shall we just leave them there? There are policemen there, there are soldiers. What shall happen to them? It contemplated, we have financial institutions, we have establishments, for example, Sonara. That young, they will claim that they are investigated there. How shall we separate when we have this out? It's all written there in black and white. For example,
Wow.
when we talk about the Tico airport, let us get independence today. We're not going to create an airport in Tico the next day to fly there. You looked at it, how shall we land in Tico, in Douala, and go back to Boya? Until such a time that we'll have our own airport. It's written there in black and white. This was done in 1995. I'm not sure the Americans, when they went to fight for independence, they even contemplated as far as we did. So it's not accident. The journey is just difficult, but it's not impossible. We have laid all the plans on the ground. We have all the blueprint. We just need to improve on those things. And we will get to near perfection. No human institution is perfect, but we'll get to near perfection. And so, Ambazonians, rest assured, remain resolute, and again take from the 1993 AAC1 and 1994 AAC2. No individual shall go to represent the interests of British Southern Cameroon, Ambazonia, unless he or she is properly qualified,
Assigned.
authorized to do so.
Yes.
That
Yes.
principle applies today in the Swiss, it applies today in the Canada 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, in whatever thing that is coming today. That is still the principle
Wow.
that was laid in 1993, 1994. I'm not sure how old some of us were, but what I know is that in 1993, 1994, the Choayabas were just enrolling in the University of Boya, Akwanga. They were the first year students. So they were babies in this thing. But that principle has not changed. I might have been, I was old because I took part in those things. But the people who are fighting now were not even born. I don't know how old Dr. Sako was. I don't know. I think Sisiku was a small boy. I talked this to his to one of his brothers. A small boy in 1993, 94. He was not an old man. But the principles don't get old. They remain permanent. They remain the guiding rules of
Right.
what was done. So again,
Wow.
what happened in 1993, we're talking about the AAC 1 and 2, has not changed. It has only improved. A good number of people who were in 1993 have bowed out. Some of them are dead. I mentioned Benjamin Ito, who was a convener, but never took part. But his name remains there. He's still alive, but he's out of service. So let's remain focused. Know that the principles that were born even in 1959, when Foncha went to the United Nations and said, look, we don't want this joining. We want our independence first. Then joining can come later on. The principle remains intact. That is why Abemukong says you cannot suppress this fact. Abemukong was not with Foncha. He was against him for saying that. But he came to realize, oh no, this man was right. He was just a good teacher. He was right. How he changed his mind, we don't know. But the Ahmed Aragui, let us just go and enter this thing, legs and hands together. But he got there and said, no, it's not going to work. That principle has survived Foncha, who is dead. And we are reading it from books said by Mokong, who is dead. Has anything changed? No. The principle remains the same principle, which is guiding us till today and will guide us to the end. We will get our independence first, then we'll do what we want to do later. Be it joining, be it anything we want to do, independence first, other activities later. So said Frontier in 1959 at the United Nations. That principle holds then, it holds today. And thank everybody for listening.
Thank you very much, Barrister. I pity these modern day generations that are so, I don't know what adjective to use to describe them. I don't want to insult them. But you find some people coming to, instead of sitting down and listening quietly, they come and write rubbish. Oh, instead of you collaborating, you are talking about history, history, history. If you go and look at that young man, he is very void. He is an empty vacuum. He's a vacuum that doesn't know anything. Let's not go there. But Barrister, I want to doff my cap for this history and to tell Ambazonians who are of goodwill to note that the America they are rushing to, their war was in the dark ages, was not as enlightened and so planned out as ours, because like our president said a few days ago, that there were just two options on the table. But one of the options that the Republic chose was the option of war instead of peace that you have talked that started in 1993 and was going on. Anyway, there's somebody on the line. Let's hear what he wants to say. Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm getting you. Reverend Commodore, good evening.
Good evening.
I just want to contribute this idea of you people coming up, living the right way you have to point your fingers. Mona has done the Frontier has done it. I think I am 77. I think I know a bit of this, what we are talking about. We should leave point fingers at Britain. Britain gave certificate of independence to Ahijo and not to Frontier. The idea of pointing finger at disappearance is not correct.
Yeah.
They did nothing.
Can you just listen?
They
Did you
did
listen?
nothing.
Did you listen to what Barrister? I'm in the studios now with Barrister Timothy, who has been
Yes,
outlining the history of what you know. If you are 77 today, I would wish that you listen to it, because most of the pointing of the fingers and hands was as a result of the ignorance that is prevalent right now amongst so many young Amazonians who have not listened to the history that our father, Barrister Timothy Beseha, who is just saying it right now in the studios, and you are coming in to say exactly what we have been hammering at, that people should listen to the history and stop pointing fingers. I would advise that you listen to what he has just said today. It will be wonderful. And then tomorrow you can now come up with what we are saying. We are getting ready and recognizing our ignorance. Go ahead.
okay, now, okay, we are joining it. Let me listen to you, and then tomorrow I come on.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. We
Let me
really
help him for you.
appreciate it.
Let me help him before you leaves. Let me help him before he leaves. I hope he's still listening.
Yeah.
Are you still listening, sir?
Yes, he is listening. He will listen on the TV now.
I just said a few minutes ago that the blame is not on Foncha. The blame is not on Paul, on Ahijo, on Muna. The blame is not on all those others. And I quoted a document from Abemokong's Prisoner Without a Conscience, who says he doves his heart to Foncha, that truth should not be hidden. That is Foncha, who went to United Nations and said, look, let them not join these people first. That's what Abemokong wrote, and I've just mentioned here. We're not blaming any of them. I've instead praised them that they did their best. They all were there. If things went wrong, it's not because our people did it wrong. It's because they did not want the thing to work. That's why they caught Abemokong and jailed him for not joining the party. That's why they tried to catch Dinka and send him to jail for raising up his finger. I have not blamed any of them. Go listen to it, it's recorded, and then you may change.
No, Barrister, he's not
Yes.
talking about you. He's not talking about
Now,
you.
I'm just
He's
trying to
talking
let you know
about the
that
general
it should be progressive.
Amazonian activists that have been talking so much. But you have been coming in here to put us on the spotlight to see exactly what is going on. So definitely, he's talking about some of the stories that have been going on, which of course you have debunked a number of them, not outrightly coming out to debunk, but coming out to give a teaching that will debunk all that has been said, which is not a reality. And that's why history is very, very important to know, so that when you are saying something, you say it according to how it happened, because that is the truth that cannot be hidden, as Abeboko and the rest have been saying. Thank you.
Again, let him understand that it's not everything that will come here and say Britain did it. I've said that in spite of Frontier standing up to say, look, one independence first, the British never listened to him. The British said, no, we're going to go our own way, organizing the plebiscite. That is not pressing Great Britain. But we'll discuss on the topic for the day. The topic for today is the AAC 1 and 2 and the fallout. That's the focus for today. That's why I've tried to bring every fact to that particular issue. So, brother, maybe you're my age mate, go look at your history. If you have anything different from what I'm saying, which I've quoted my own sources, it will be useful to us and we'll learn. Thank you.
Again, I repeat very seriously that if he follows the episodes you have been given here, I will let you know that he is talking exactly what he would have said if he was sitting in your position. So that one, he has been listening to a lot of some of our activists who come in and blame Foncha, blame Joa, blame Endele, blame everybody. And this generation that doesn't actually know our history. So, Barrister, our time is up, and please, we are coming back next week to have this our amber history spelled out, even though they are critics, and these critics are small young boys that are running to America, and some of them who are opportune to sit back at home doing nothing. Theirs is only to use their big mouth to kind of discourage, but it cannot discourage old men like us, because we are fighting for some of them. We shall see Ambazonia, but we shall not be ancestors of La Republic sitting on the throne and then trying to give them the move of 1959 and 62, while the world is now on on IT, and they are still coming to talk about electronics. So once again, thank you very much for coming, Barrister. I would like to call it a date with you today, and looking forward to seeing you next week. Have a wonderful week, Barrister. Your last word, if you have any. Thank you.
No, thank you for having me, and thank the man who asked the question for following up. That is important, because we'll be a discussion
Yeah.
between me and you if people don't follow up. We just encourage
Mm.
others to follow up so we can build a better future. So we can remind ourselves what we are to build a future. It's 77, so we're looking on living the better world for our children and our grandchildren. Good enough.
Yeah.
Almost all what I've said is documented. I encourage the young people to read all these books. A good number of these books are found online. If you cannot find hard copy somewhere, you can buy them online. There are so many. I think I have at least 10, 20 books here. So let the young people read books about Amazonia in order to better prepare themselves for the academic fight, for the physical fight, for the intellectual education of the generation to come. Even if we lose the battle, which we're not going to lose, this documentation remain there forever. You can buy this on Amazon. Amazon is nobody's house. So thank you for having me. Thank people for listening to us. We hope people would have to arm themselves better after this political education. See you next time.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Barrister, for coming today. And young Ambazonians, please, put your Android phones down, get books and read, and stop coming here and vomiting rubbish, what you don't know. Please. We know that you have been deceived by Facebook, Instagram, other Instagram or whatever, and WhatsApp and so on. But please, don't remain on that stuff, because it's making you lazy. Get books and read and understand where Amazonia is coming from and where we are going. Thank you very much, and see you when we see you next week on our Amber History. God bless you.